Welcome, Drink with James, episode 183. We are coming to you on a Tuesday. I love it. A couple people tweeted me today being like, what is happening? There's no Drink with James episode today. My life is over. Everything is meaningless. I exaggerate a little bit, but people were worried, where is Drink with James? And I go up to Tim and I'm like, Tim, what the fuck, man? Like, why are these people asking me why there's no Drink with James? Did we not upload one last week? And he was like, it is Tuesday. And we upload on Monday, and we didn't yesterday because of MLK. And I completely forgot that it was Tuesday. And so, yeah, if you missed us, that is why. But I'm coming to you now on a Tuesday. I'm going out of town next week with my family. We do a ski trip every year to Lake Placid. We're doing that next week. So I think they're probably going to make me film 2 this week. And so this is the first one. And this morning, I was scrolling through Twitter when I woke up, and I saw this tweet that I thought was really interesting, and I thought I will explain it to you guys. Someone was basically just like, if you think about the creators that you really don't like, that have built a big audience. For me, like, I hate the Logan Paul, right? Like, there's nothing about that person that I find interesting. I think that he's boring and a silly little child and a misogynist and an asshole and all of these things. I'm not interested in anything that he does. And this guy writing this tweet was essentially like, there can be, as a marketer or as a creator, value in following along with creators or people that you don't necessarily personally connect with to understand what they're doing to build an audience. What are these people that again, while you may not like them or connect with their content, can you learn something from them? And I think that we are, in general, much more likely to, follow along with stuff that we really personally enjoy. But I do think as an influencer, it's good to get outside of your niche, outside of your community, and understand how some people that, again, you may not actually like their content, but see what they're doing to engage with their audiences and to create that connection. Because you do never know where you are going to learn something. I am not going to start following Logan Paul or any of those morons, but I did think it was interesting, and I think that if there's an action point, maybe go hate follow somebody that you've been avoiding for a while. You might just learn something. And then joke's on them, right? Because they've just taught you something about how you can compete with them, and then you can crush them, and then ultimately you achieve your goal. You take your hate follow and you ruin their life. So that's your classic win-win. All right, question number 1 was around audience demographics and why they are important. Specifically in this case, an influencer has a larger male following than a normal female skincare influencer. But something like skincare is unisex, and so that technically shouldn't impact your ability to work with brands. So let's step back here. Do brands care about demographics? Absolutely. Demographics on a whole, even from Instagram, are a bit of a guess. So you don't have to disclose your sex, your age, your household income, anything like that when signing up for Instagram, where you live. And so a lot of it is a guess in general. So that is one thing. We get questions all the time. Your data is different than Instagram's. That is why everyone's just kind of looking at the content and trying to make assumptions. Is this a man? Is this a woman? Where do they live? How much money do they make? Are they married? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, why is it important? Well, yes, for most of these brands, they say, 75% of our customers are women or 75% are men. And so obviously I want to work with influencers whose demographic split matches that of my customers, unless I am specifically going after a new customer base, right? We had years ago a whiskey company come to us and say, 90% of our customers are men. We think there's a real opportunity to market whiskey to women. And that's something we're focused on. So in that case, demographics were still really important because we wanted to target influencers with a largely female demographic. So we are constantly looking at demographics when we are trying to apply the strategy that we have and pick the right influencers. Now, as an influencer, sometimes split demographics can make it difficult to close those brand deals. It can be hard if working specifically in skincare, obviously in makeup, to explain your male audience, right? Do men buy skincare? Absolutely. Do men buy makeup? Absolutely. At much lower numbers than women do in general. And then often, like it or not, or whether this is right or wrong, specific brands inside of even the skincare category are obviously marketed to men and women, right? Like, it's crazy to me that there's this is moisturizer for men and this is moisturizer for women. There's just moisturizer, really. And yes, we are biologically different. Our skin is different. There are different needs, but it seems more to do with the fact that men are uncomfortable at buying skincare. So it has to be this ridiculous macho thing of just some guy with a handlebar mustache being yes, get your skin looking tip top, because they don't want to be seen as gay because we live in America, and even though it's 2020, that is still a big driver of most men's behavior. So I digress. What do you do if that split is unfavorable for you? So one is understanding your audience a bit more. If you have a skincare specific feed, for instance, and you're yes, I'm 50-50 men, women, but my male followers are crazy about skincare. They love luxury skincare. Here are DMs, here's explanations, get ahead of it, right? Anything that a brand could come at you and say hey, this looks weird, always good to get ahead of it. I talk about the freestyle rap at the end of 8 Mile, where Eminem, in his freestyle, he takes everything that the guy is gonna say about him and says it himself. He's yeah, whatever, I live in a trailer, whatever. I don't know what he said. It was great. Great moment in cinema, but I don't remember the rap exactly. And then it kicks over to the other guy. He's got nothing to say, right? So we think about that in our sales meetings, right? If we're the smallest company, we use that as a strength. We don't wait for the brand to say, well, you guys are the smallest company pitching us. We get in front of it. We say, we know we're the smallest company here. Here's why that is a positive for you. We don't let them turn it into a negative. So understand those demographic splits and understand how to talk to them. Now, if, I'm going to use a friend, Olivia Caputo here, as an example. I met her 2 years ago. She's from Florida. She's got she's got a history in beauty pageants. She had a following that was largely male. And she's I want to move to New York. I want to do this influencer thing. And, part of my advice was you have to try and shift, that audience. That New York brands are going to look at it and say you're a beautiful girl that is posting bikini photos and has attracted a male audience. And that male audience isn't interested in, our brand's new color palette that's coming out this month, right? They're following you for different reasons. And so she put the work in over years to shift her content away from the Florida beach vibes into, a young professional woman who's in New York trying to make it and hustle and incorporating beauty, incorporating skincare and hair and all of these things. And she has, over the years, significantly changed her audience to be quite a bit more balanced, or, to be more women than men, and is killing it. We work with her all the time. She's great. That took years to get there, but you can change those things. If you feel your demographics are not representative of the content that you want to create anymore, you can change that. It's going to take a long time to get there. And, the advice I gave Olivia years ago, potentially be the same advice I'd give you now, is if you feel I know 30% of my audience isn't valuable to brands and they always bring that up, then again, one way to get ahead of it is be hey, I know that you don't want to market to these 30% of men, so I'm not going to charge you. I'm going to reduce my rates 30%. That's how much I want to work with you. Like, I'll give you that for free, And I'll say, like, I understand that this may not align with your strategy, so let me cut the price off. And so instead of being charging like someone with 100,000 followers, I'll charge like someone with 70,000. It makes you sound a lot more confident. It, again, makes the brand be like, oh, that's really fair. And it's you being honest and transparent and not trying to just optimize that relationship for the dollars that you can get today, but think about the long-term success of the partnership. So up next, story reach. So stories came out a couple years ago. Obviously, the most successful thing that Instagram has released since Instagram, huge success. In a lot of ways, it's cannibalized the feed. It's changed the way we interact with the app. We put out a little data story on our Instagram recently showing the average percentage of story reach per following tier. Interesting to go into that. If you haven't taken a look at it, Brian can throw it up, but also check it out. In general, if you're not following our Instagram, you should. We're putting out these data stories at least once a week. Look, we're starting to see a huge shift to stories. There was a request in Instagram to do an episode on stories. We are working on that now, so that will be coming. So I'm not going to talk about tips and how to optimize and get more reach on your stories, but important to think about what is happening here in Instagram as a platform in general. When Instagram started, it was a way to connect with your friends, mostly it was a way to connect with your friends. It was bought by Facebook because any app that comes out that's about sharing photos with your friends, Facebook will buy. You want to get acquired by Facebook, build a successful app that's all around sharing photos with your friends, and they will fucking buy you. Because they understand that is at their core, their core competency and their competitive advantage is that, like, for better or worse, the world has changed in a way that, like, that is how you keep up with people. And so they want to own any app where you communicate with your friends with photos. WhatsApp was bought because there were more photos being sent on WhatsApp every day than they were being published on Instagram when WhatsApp got bought. So they snapped it up. Snapchat, obviously all about sharing photos with your friends. They wanted to buy it. They got rebuffed and they just copied it. Whoops. As Instagram became a bigger thing, as it had a bigger place in culture, it gets more professional. It gets more produced. It gets more serious. People are making money off of it, right? There's ads, there's all these things. And every day it becomes a little bit less about keeping up with your friends, right? I mean, how many of you are shooting content a week before you're publishing it on Instagram, 2 weeks before? Well, that's not really doing much if I'm your friend for me to know what you're doing to see a photo of you 3 weeks ago, right? So then you start going to stories because that is real time. That is where I can actually learn. What did you have for dinner last night? Who was out late? Who was out late drinking? Who was up early working out? Who's traveling? Who got a promotion? Who's sad about this? Who's sharing some meme, right? Like, that is where you stay connected. And the content that you create there, I think the reason we haven't yet seen stories tick over into this hyper produced little mini movies is that still for most people, the benefit is creating in-app and showing what you're doing. I mean, just think about that. Like, when Instagram started, it was an absolute no-no to upload professional photos. You had to shoot the photo that you were going to publish to Instagram in-app. When was the last fucking time you shot a photo in-app and published it? Probably 6 years ago, maybe, right? And so stories brings back this place where you're creating in-app. It has to be in the moment. By design, it's going to be in the moment. And that's what makes it so interesting. And so as you think about that content, you think about stories, think about that connection. I heard Evan Spiegel, the founder of Snapchat, talking recently, and he said that, like, he thinks of social media like a pyramid. And at the bottom of the pyramid, you have like how many people are creating content, right? So at the bottom of the pyramid, he had like talking to friends. He's like, that's Snapchat. Snapchat's about talking to friends. That's something that every person has a desire to do, to stay connected to the people that they love. And Snapchat, that is what they see themselves as, a communication app, not social media. And he said one step up is like social media, which is all about clout. It's all about, some form of like showing off. It's likes, it's comments, it's followers, it's beautiful photos. It is a little bit more intimidating. It's something that less people are willing to do. There are a lot of people that are lurkers on Instagram, but don't post in feed. Right? They have private accounts they don't post to. So it's a little harder. And then you have TikTok at the top, right? And TikTok is about, in a lot of ways about talent. It's not about you at all, right? It's about your ability to be funny, your ability to learn a dance, your ability to riff on this meme. And that's something that is like very intimidating for most people. And while if you look at TikTok as entertainment, which it is, the appetite for consuming entertainment is massive. The amount of people that can be entertaining is a lot smaller, right? And TikTok, again, it's not about sharing your life. It's not about connecting with friends. And so the creator pool is much smaller because it feels like everything you create needs to be something that could be seen by 10 million people. Whereas with an Instagram story, that's going to be seen by really just the people that you really care about. And obviously sending a Snapchat to 5 friends, it's being seen by those 5 friends. So it keeps it more authentic. So it's an interesting thing to think about. And as you think about all of these platforms, there are different things that make sense for them. And it is why you can't take your Insta stories, download them and put them into a TikTok and have that work. It is why a brand can't take their magazine ads and put them into Instagram and have that work. It is why if you probably shot your Instagram photos in camera and published it to your feed, it probably wouldn't be great. If you were like, what? I'm only using Valencia filter this year. That is it. That time is probably past as well. So each platform and each feature in each platform has its own specific use, but important to remember why they were built and what drives engagement on these things. Very quickly, last one. What's the easiest way to diversify my social media presence off Instagram? We talked about this a few times. There is really no excuse. If you want to, there's no excuse not to try and do something. When I started publishing stuff on the internet many, many years ago, I did so because Tumblr was the first tool that made it possible for someone that was not a coder, wasn't going to buy a WordPress theme to have a blog. It felt really low touch. You just picked a theme and started publishing. Tumblr still exists. There's great themes out there. If you want to start a blog, you can do it on Squarespace. You can do it on WordPress. There's Exposure, which my friend runs. If you're a photographer, that's great. You can start a newsletter with MailChimp. You can start something with Substack. You can, do something interesting with Twitter. You can start a TikTok. You can start doing something on YouTube. I mean, there is kind of no end to how you can diversify. But coming off that last question, you got to make sure that those messages are unique and that they are built for that platform, and that they make sense in that platform. And too many people, say, oh, I know I need to diversify. I know I need to try new things, do something new, get off Instagram. My whole future is tied up in Instagram. And, the frustrating thing is you talk to them 3 months later and you're like, what's going on? And they're like, I need to do something. I should start a blog. I should start a newsletter. And 3 months later, same thing. You just sometimes have to just do it. And I find that sometimes it is helpful to try and break those big goals into little ones and say okay, I know I want to start a newsletter. Easiest way to do these things is to try and break it into smaller goals that get you to the eventual one. So building out a newsletter, if you just were going to do that and you said, well, I need a strategy, I need a designer to help me design the newsletters, I need to write at least my first 5 newsletters, then I need to figure out how I'm going to get people to sign up for the newsletter. I have to get that populated. Then I'm gonna have to sign up for MailChimp, get all that coded, and then I'll send it out. That sounds exhausting, right? And I understand why you wouldn't do it, because you're not getting any money for this right away. It's kind of a big pain in the ass. What if instead you said, I'm gonna go to my Gmail, I'm gonna pick 100 names of my friends and some brands I've worked with, I'm gonna send an email. You know, I'm gonna, what my newsletter would be if it didn't have HTML and all of those things, I'm gonna just send an email to 100 people, I'm gonna see the response. And at the end of it, I'm gonna say, hey, this is something I'm considering. Did you enjoy this? Do you think, like, would love any feedback, write back if you have anything. And maybe 20 people write back and said, I love this. This was amazing. You should do it. Okay, there you go. Now you have some momentum. You know, you've put something into the world and you've tested it and you've seen if people actually like it, and then you can move forward. You have to try and find what in the startup world we call an MVP, a minimum viable product. What is the absolute minimum you can do to test this thing? And so if you were testing a blog, you know, do you have to even start a blog, or could you start writing longer captions by, you know, writing a story and putting it as a carousel in, you know, an in-feed post? There are ways to test these things without going out and hiring someone for $10,000 to build you a blog. Minimum viable product, you test it, you validate it, and then you invest in it. It's a good way to kind of get yourself, you know, get off your ass and just try this stuff and realize that, like, at the end of the day, nobody fucking cares, right? Like, none of us are a big enough deal where there's so much scrutiny that if you put out something that's not professional, oh, the world will shake and come undone, and, you know, Zeus will, from the clouds, will throw one of his thunderbolts down and strike you down for you know, daring to send out an email that wasn't designed well. Nobody gives a shit. We're trying stuff here. This is the internet. It should be, you know, you should be able to experiment. And if you feel like you can't, that's a personal problem. That's a mindset problem. You have to let go of it. I'm a perfectionist, you know. I love things to be perfect, but, like, I'm pushing the team all the time to put out stuff that's not perfect, to move faster so we can learn and so we can, you know, chase perfection. Ideally, you never get there, right? As the saying goes, perfection is the enemy of progress, and it is often better to do than to fiddle around and try and do it perfectly. So I will say, unless you're like a bridge builder, in which case I would like definitely focus on doing it perfectly. But outside of that, you're good to go. Cheers.